Hello and welcome to the Queber channel. I am Jason, your host. Self-care. Looking after yourself in a situation of mental health crisis. And I was in crisis in 2019. Oh boy, yes, I was in complete crisis. I had 5 different teams trying to keep me in this world. I had my GP, I had a therapist, I had a senior psychologist, I had different mental health teams at the mental well-being place. All were trying to keep me in this world. All were trying to get me to have a reason for living, to work through what was going on, and all of them felt completely and totally helpless. Not only had my wife just died, my anchor for my mental issues, after 20 years of looking after her, every single day I'm watching her slowly die. So my stress level was beyond what a normal person had ever handled. I was suffering with PTSD, and I was repeatedly seeing my wife's death. I had bowel cancer that had been diagnosed. Logically, I saw no reason to stick around. It wasn't a emotional decision. I just didn't really have the ability to fight anymore. There was only so many days in a row that you can see your wife's death in vivid colour and sound and everything before it just wears you down. See, most people who end their lives or come to that point in time don't come to that point because they just make an emotional decision. They do it because they can't fight anymore. They do it because end of line is preferable than going through it again. I was 3 weeks away from enacting my plan. I had a plan. Most people who are serious about it, they have a plan. And everything they were trying to do with me, the group therapies, the one-on-one therapies, I could talk things out while I was there, but the moment I left the office, the moment I left the call, the moment I left thingy, then it was still there. And the thing is, you have to remember in these situations, give me a second, you've got to remember also, I was also on top of all the stuff I was dealing with, on top of all my mental issues, my neurodivergent issues. My mum was diagnosed with early onset dementia, and the only other rock in my life was fading away. This is not a situation that a lot of people are put into. Most have to deal with one problem, and nothing worked. I even had Samaritans calling me, and I didn't know at the time. And I think a lot of people don't know that with your permission, if they think you're in danger, if they think you're in trouble, if you think that things could go badly, they can actually ask your permission to call you, to check on you, once a week or once every 4 or 5 days. I had people from the local council health team who would ring me and see if I was okay. And there was so many people trying to help me and none of it was working. I was just losing the will to fight. And no one understood me. No one seemed to understand me. And then I was passed over to a mental health specialist with 40 plus years of experience. And like I've said before, I was so angry because I was ready to enact my plan. I just wanted to be fucking left alone, but no, they wanted me to go see this one more person, this one more test, this one more thingy that they'd try from their book of tricks to try and save my ass. I was so angry when I walked into his office. I sat down and he did that thing that really has always annoyed me, and that is he picked up my mental health file, very big file, and started to read it there. I'm sitting in the fucker's office. I'm waiting for him to give me his wonderful wisdom and everything that's going to fix everything. I was so fucking sarcastic in my brain. I was ready to punch someone. I was ready. I didn't give a fuck at that point in time. I had nothing left to lose. Nothing. Paola was gone. The world didn't understand me. The world wanted me to fit back in a box and go on with my life and become a productive fucking member of society. And so here is this guy who, in my head, I wanted to rant at him and that, because why hadn't he read my file before I came in? Why hadn't he taken the time to do that? How could he help me if he was just now reading my file? And then everything changed. Everything changed. When he said those few words to me, he just put the folder down. He looked me in the eye and he said, "How are you still alive? I've had people with half what you're dealing with, and sadly we've never been able to help them. How are you still alive?" That person pretty much saved my life. And of all the teams of people that were trying to think, he was the only one who asked me that question. Oh, lots of them ask you, have you had suicidal thoughts and blah, 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 blah. Seriously, that's one of the most stupid questions to ask someone who's in a crisis situation. Because if they're in a crisis situation, if they know the system, they'll know that replying in a certain way will get them put in hospital. And there's already a level of distrust there. Every single mental health person I've ever known, person with dealing with problems, has probably lied in that situation. I didn't. they were literally at the point of waiting for the police to check on me to make sure I hadn't ended my life yet. That's what they were expecting. And no one had asked me how I was still alive, how I was still functioning. Don't play games, it's a waste of time. You'll ruin your eyes, you should be out getting a job. You should be out doing this or that. You can't run away and escape into your bedroom. You can't run away and escape into your games. They're not a solution. How a book of one-size-fits-all mental health things doesn't agree with what you're doing. And that's when my journey began. That is when I and this man threw out all the old ideas. Oh, it was all kept on the card. At any point in time, I could go on medication if I wanted. At any point in time, I could go on the waiting list to go into hospital. That was always left on the card. It wasn't ever turned off. But it was a wonderful situation where someone finally asked me how I was coping and what coping methods I was developing. And in that 1 hour talk with this person, everything changed. And we started using virtual reality, we started using streaming, we started using gaming. He was like, yeah, I think he could never say that I was autistic because he was a general mental health practitioner overviewing it. He could say certain things, like he could say that he had a specialist in bipolar who could say, yes, you've got your bipolar type 2. He could diagnose me with that, and he got someone to diagnose me with ADHD, and he diagnosed me with PTSD, but he couldn't do the autistic side. So even though I'm pretty sure right at the start he knew that I was autistic, he couldn't give a diagnosis. So we're there, we're sitting. So we go through everything. He basically contacts the team that's looking after me, talks to them, gets them to sign off, because the stuff they were trying wasn't working anyway. So I was left with just a couple of different systems in place to check on me and to sign off on anything that I tried. And my general practitioner, my GP, was informed, and I started using computers and games and streaming. And back then I had very few coping mechanisms, because everybody had told me that this was wrong, that I shouldn't be spending my time in front of computers, that I should be getting involved with all the step and the change stuff, and I should be going out with groups of mental health people and meeting up and going to the pub and all. Oh, God. So I started off with streaming. I streamed for 9-10 hours a day in my little room upstairs in the other house, with the dogs on the seat next to me. And we just streamed. And at first I thought I'd never be able to stop crying, and then I thought I'd never be able to smile. And slowly over the year, things got better. This wasn't a cure, because you can't just cure autism, you can't just cure bipolar. But it was a coping strategy, and it was working. And then we started to change things and add things, and everything new I'd add, I'd ring up and I'd let them know. My level of self-care, and that increased. My defences built up to allow me to take care of a lot more shit that went on. And it was amazing. It was truly amazing to see it happen. As I slowly gained back the agency in myself, the looking after myself. And people stopped asking me to go out, stopped asking me to do this and do that, and they actually allowed me to look after myself. And it worked, and it got better, and we realized that it wasn't just computers, it was technology, it was everything to do with technology. And I started to open myself up to making projects around the house and setting up things and building up a safe room of armor in the other house, and making sure everything, layers upon layers upon layers, and every room had its own tablet, every room had its own computer, every room had its little console, so that everything was working together. So every room I was in, every place I went, there was some piece of technology I could focus on if I needed to. And I'm very, very lucky that at the start of all this, well, before even all this, I had the resources of my mum buying me lots and lots of stuff when Paola was alive. So I was able to leverage a lot of that things into creating computer technology things and setting everything up. After all, Paola we had been basically living the same 4 walls for 18 years, and then we moved over to here, but we moved a lot of the technology, and it was like this was a foundation basis. This was all the stuff. Sadly, I lost most of it when I had to move over here and had to redo it all, but that was the basis of it. Finding that thing that was so important to me, that overrided everything else, that was the tactile feel of computers, of technology, of holding things, of messing with tech, of playing with bits and pieces, and seeing around, even just seeing computers and bits and pieces around me all the time as a comfort. I would just slowly built and built and built on top of it. I'm lucky to be able to self-care. I've done everything I can to build up this thing. A suit of armor around me. And it evolved so much, even to using the whoop, and I finally found a smart. Watch that works for me and makes me happy, that I only have to charge this smartwatch up once every 39 days. That I can deal with, that I can remember, that I don't mind taking my watch off for a couple of hours to charge it up at that point in time. I am lucky. I am very lucky. I mean, I will always be in issues. I have such a perfect storm of issues that I've been struggling to cope with all my life. And this is why I have so many backups and that. And if my mental health team asks me if I have suicidal thoughts or thoughts about death, I will say yes. And then I will put that in context and say, but I cope with them. You cannot expect someone who's dealing with all the things and seen all the things and watched his wife die, watched other people die, saw people die at the hospital. They're not going to not have thoughts of death, of the peace that death brings. But I am grounded in this world. My wife fought every day to survive, and I can do no less. But I have to acknowledge those bad thoughts. I have to acknowledge any weakness in my armour, any chinks in my armour and what I'm facing. And you always have to create new, adaptable mental health routines. Just like I'm using AI now. Because AI is a wonderful addition, because not only is it something I can talk to, it's got that, it's technology that I can talk to. I always dreamed as a kid of having a computer I could talk to, because I understand computers so well, and I thought computers would understand me so well. It's interesting. Anyway, this is Jason for the VRchat. Before I leave, I want to make one thing very important. Going into hospital isn't bad. And for most people, the treatment that is offered does help. Even if you don't want it to help, it tries to help. And there's nothing wrong with being on medication, and there's nothing wrong with going down that path. I am a unique situation. Maybe some of my things that I've tried to use and that may help others, but remember, you can't self-diagnose. Remember, everything I did was done with the on board of my mental health care team. And even now, if I add anything new to the mix, if I add anything new to my coping strategies, I send an email to my GP so it gets added to my records. They are always on board. And even though my mental health team has basically signed off on me, they check on me, but they've signed off on me because I cope so well with the way I deal with all this. I am very happy with how things go. There is always that overview, because you can't fix yourself without help. You do need to first of all know what problems you've got to start with. So this is Jason for the VRchat. I hope you're having a wonderful day.